you could say. So again, welcome everyone. I just want to show you this slide. You saw it in the opening presentation as well. But of course, we are extremely happy to see the family of 4 companies growing over these 10 years to become these good, big family of companies. So great, everyone, and it is a privilege to have you part of Software Center. We have an agenda for the session. We just did a round of introductions. The keynote of today is from Access Communication, Anders Görtz. I will soon hand over to him. But before that, I just wanted to show you a little bit of an update on what we actually did in the sprint with regards to the product community session. So we had 4 workshops starting in January, ending in May. And as you can see on this slide, the main topic during this sprint has been on business agility. So that has been a topic engaging, I would say, the majority of the Software Center companies. We have had the product management community, including members from almost all companies, joining together in cross-company workshops on, for example, how do we achieve business agility? What is it all about? What are the different business models that will help us achieve business agility? And how do you need to think and work in terms of system architecture and platforms? And actually, we had planned to also touch upon the R&D and ways of working, but the system architecture and platform workshops were so intense with so many participants and really good discussions. So we actually didn't come around to the R&D and ways of working topic that we had planned, which is then, of course, an upcoming topic for this community to address. So if we just look back, some of the things that we discussed in these workshops. So for example, I mean, the whole notion of agility and being agile is not new. But there are several challenges with what we refer to as traditional agile. Typically, one thing is that it is really difficult to reach beyond the software, the R&D, the software organization. So you don't really go beyond DevOps. And this is, of course, by nature, the agile, the agility concept was originally developed for software teams. It was not planned for or customized for embedded systems contexts where you have the electronics, the mechanics, the everything else beyond software. So there are lots of challenges then with how to scale beyond software and this organization. And one of the questions that we touched upon during the sprint was how do you nurture what you have, the existing, while at the same time build something new? So with regards to the agility within the software organization, how do you foster that one and enhance that one while also expanding into other areas? And how do you manage the coexistence between the two? Also, of course, there is a number of steps you can take when you move towards, and this was also described in the opening, the more digital you become, there are different steps you take. And this includes also how to mature in the sense of business agility. How do you go from more of the product to the more of the digital sales, or at least the service-oriented sales? And we did a deep dive into some of the steps. And we also looked upon how do you combine what is known as the contemporary, the transactional, the traditional sales that you are all in, and so very successfully in, towards something more continuous, towards the service sales. That was one of the key topics with regards to business models. And then we had a workshop where we explored basically how do you work? What are the best practices for moving towards these more service-oriented sales that open up for new opportunities? And many of the people in this workshop mentioned things like continuous experimentation. We had presentation on customer tribes, customer reference groups, the importance to work close to your customer and to iteratively and incrementally learn from these customers. People talked about active involvement, taking more of a coach advisory role. So it's really like a close collaboration and a relationship with your customer to create a win-win. And then it was also mentioned openness, transparency, and collaboration with partners. And this, I think, will also maybe be touched upon in today's keynote. I do not know, I didn't hear it yet, but I could imagine that this is also important in a larger ecosystem, of course. Then some of the recent work that we did explore, and this was the reason for the system architecture and platform workshop on business agility, was the whole notion on how do you move from software to system agility. And I won't go into details because we don't have time for that. But basically, we were trying to figure out what are the value you look to achieve and what is the balance between value of new functionality versus cost. Because when it comes to business flexibility and agility, there is always a trade-off. You need to consider the value you gain by something new versus the cost it takes to develop this. And so we specified and we discussed with the companies different key factors. What are the values you look to achieve? What are the costs that are associated with development of new functionality? We captured it even in a formula. I will present this in the afternoon sessions. So for those of you who are interested in learning more, please join the afternoon session of theme 4. But basically the formula, the intention is to help companies reason about what are the value we look to achieve and what are the costs we pay for actually delivering this value. Because these are all important questions when you come to the development of new functionality and the reasoning between how do we work with software, how do we work with mechanics, electronics. These have different life cycles, and from an agility perspective, those are critical to understand because they will remain different, but you need to optimize the entire system to achieve business agility. But as I said, this will be elaborated upon in the afternoon session much more. But just to give you a very brief overview over some of the key concepts during this sprint. So agility has been one big topic, and then also the whole notion of the ecosystem. How do we work with partners, and how do we get our partners on board when we try to move to something new, something more digital, you could say, something more service-oriented. With that, I will stop sharing my screen. So I hope now that I stopped, I hope that Anders can start. So with that, I would want to welcome Anders Görtz from Axis.
Thank you very much, Helena. Thanks for having me. First of all, do you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes, perfect. So no, I was super thrilled when we started the last sprint that ecosystems were mentioned there, because Axis, I don't know everyone if you know who Axis is. We're a fairly large supplier of security and surveillance equipment, starting with surveillance cameras, but also security speakers, door controllers, physical access control systems, and so on. And I really want to take this opportunity to talk about what our journey has been like, and how our journey, how we see that proceeding, and the value of a loyal ecosystem, and how to utilize and build upon the ecosystem when you see different kinds of disruptions in the market. And as I said, I'm responsible for our service platform and our IoT initiatives and the opportunities that opens up around IoT. I have some corporate slides here in the beginning, just to mention a bit. We have a turnover a bit over $1 billion US dollars. We're a Swedish founded company, part of the Canon Group. We make video surveillance and audio intercom and we're about 4,000 people in 50 countries. But what I would like to start out with is that we have a very solid way to market. We never sell directly. We sell through partners, distributors, resellers, and system integrators, and we never do any. We never try to go past that one, and that is for a way for us that we set in the beginning in 1984 that is our way to market, and a way for us to build trust within with our partners, it's a foundation of the whole company, and something that we really have been leveraging since then. And to give some history, we started in '84 with the printer connectivity, moved on to invention of the network video in 1996, and during the beginning of 2000s we led the conversion from analog surveillance video to IP based, and since since we've added a lot of different kinds of hardware to this, we take on a way to create a smarter and safer world. But what I want to more outline in this presentation is that already when we started, we saw in open interfaces, this two-tier business model, and we've always had that in our minds. So we have always been thinking about creating platforms for others to use over global expansion, and making sure that we have this loyal ecosystem that helps us in that expansion and can work on the open interfaces and work in this business model to bring out the whole solution out to the customer. We took this further to connecting everything to the network, creating the scalable distribution, to a channel partner program. So we have partners and resellers of our products, and open APIs for our technology partners. And kind of what I want to say is that the partnership has always been kind of the leading star for the company, and also that has helped us to scale and grow over time. And why? Because we get a true commitment as we take the responsibility for what we promise, working openly in close collaboration with our partners and supporting them through the project life cycle. We know where we stand, and the partners know where we stand, and we know that we have a true commitment from them as well. And our ecosystem brings together leading experts, make it easy to share experiences, specialist knowledge, and innovative solutions. So the combination of the different stakeholders in the ecosystem helps it succeed. And going from this nice company presentation, I go back to some of the kind of older style presentation. And what we see with our ecosystem is typically everything from the system integrator who installs and sells the system to our own technology partners or suppliers or application developers. So typically, if you see a crime scene investigation TV series or so on, you see these operation centers. We typically don't do that software. It's an application developer that we are partnering with, and we have distributors and consultants who can help specify systems and help end customers with selecting the right hardware, software, network infrastructure, etc. And I think this quote from Bill Gates says quite a lot. A platform is when the economical value of everybody that uses it exceeds the value of the company that creates it. That's a platform. So I think there is a tight connection between platform and an ecosystem. So actually, when you buy an Axis camera, it's a quite capable platform in there, and that you can utilize, and that's what we're going to see further on. So one more time scale from in '96. Then we brought the first network video camera to the market, and during the first 10 years of the 2000, we expanded the product portfolio so we could supply the needed kind of cameras that you need to be able to have a complete portfolio, or a good portfolio, for everything from outdoor to low light to specific indoor cameras to vandal proof. So what we got there was when we saw that working, we introduced the whole partner model, or expanded that to more areas than to the system integrator side. Along the way, we saw that physical access control is something that we see both needs from the market. We saw needs from our partners. So really acted upon the what we saw was happening. So based on that, we could expand our offering. We could help our partners expand. So they drove business to us that expands us, but we could also expand their offerings by providing new types of products that they could utilize in their business. So by us growing, they grew, and that's something that we've continued on with network radars and the security audio and whatever. So what I'm saying here is that with these loyal partnerships, we help each other grow, and it's an ecosystem as such. It's something that works together, and where we share experiences and we share a lot within this, and it's really relationship building and having a closed and nurtured relationship with all the parts here, and also an openness so we can share knowledge. There's some things about market trends that we see. Probably you've heard more and more about video surveillance, and we see it more and more on the streets and in the market. And there, from our sake, we have always had trust as a high on our agenda. So we want our customers and our partners to be able to deliver solutions where they can trust things, because just as Helena started out with, we are not sharing our names here. So the same thing goes with our customers. They want to be able to know where the data resides, where if they can mask out certain kinds of data, and they want also to know that they can trust us in the way we work ethically, and also trust us in cybersecurity, that we know what we are doing, that our software is up to date, that you can perform certain settings, so it acts the way it should within their system. Another thing that we see is that the world is going horizontal. We come from a very on-prem world, but more and more things are going cloud-based. And at the same time, we are investing heavily in artificial intelligence and edge computing. So from having a very centralized on-prem component, you can have some parts running in the device itself, for example, to lower data bandwidth or latency, and you kind of aggregate more data upstream later on. And with the whole Corona situation, low contact or no contact technologies, so you can recognize people without them having to press buttons or passing by based on their license plate numbers and so on. And of course, sustainability is something we're a premium brand. We want to, with trust and with the message that we are giving, we want to show that we are working in a sustainable way, that we are on top of that area, and that we do everything from using the right kind of plastic to have an efficient supply chain to taking care of our personnel and everything that goes within the whole CSR kind of questions. And yeah, I've been talking a lot about security and surveillance, but as I said, we have a quite capable platform in our devices, and it's basically so flexible that it can offer to solve things outside the security and surveillance space. And I think that has much come from innovative partners of ours that have used it for other things. And if we look at the trends that we just saw, there are many of those that interact with other ecosystems like AI and the cybersecurity and basically most of the ones that we just saw. And there are many ecosystems outside security and surveillance that require a reliable video that they can trust, that is handled in a cybersecure manner, and where AI and edge computing is of high relevance. And should we fit them into the ecosystem that we already have, or do different ecosystems mix and match, or do they collide? And that is something that I've had high on my agenda. So I'm going to be have a few quite concrete examples, so it's not too fluffy. So one thing is occupancy measurements in stores, where our cameras act as sensors counting people. So basically, they are not interested in the video that the camera produces. They are interested in the kind of getting the machine learning out to the camera and using the data that those models produce. Often used for different kinds of business planning. If you how many visitors do you have during certain hours, or do you have too many visitors? That's a very Corona-driven use case, but that is not used typically within the same applications which we have in our ecosystem. It's typically used within some kind of ERP system and business intelligence system, and those kinds of, we don't have those kinds of partners in our ecosystem. Our security and surveillance ecosystem are centered around video management and making sure that you are on top of things when it comes to theft or overview of your facilities and so on. So this is not something that we catch within ours. Or you could look at license plate identification with, if you want to open a parking garage like on the image here, or hand out packages when a customer comes to your store and they have ordered online groceries or something. And that is also through ERP system or building at automation systems, while we also see license plate in surveillance, but we want to extend that. And if you then look at, I just took an ecosystem picture from the internet, and it looks quite similar to the ones that we have. So how they are typically structured in the same way. And the questions I asked earlier, how can you move into new ones? Do you need to put your own on top, or should you do everything by yourself, or what does, how do they interact? And I think the lessons that we've learned, and the last slide that I have, is that an ecosystem is something that you deserve. It's not something that you build. I think that's one learning that we have had over time. And it's a constant process to nurture, to have this relationship. And I think during the last year, we've started to work more and more with data exchange between us. So we can act faster on the intelligence that we are getting and what the typical systems look like and how they work. And the learning from our is that, yes, you can reach other ecosystems. By knowing your partners, you can help them to move into new territories, just as they've helped us to move into, for example, occupancy. And we grow and they grow, so we can utilize at least parts of our ecosystem, some partners, and thereby we increase the value of, if we call it, our ecosystem, and we can complement other ones. So I think that there is a great combination to start expanding within the other ecosystems by using the one that you have already built up and the trust that you have there. And that was all I had.